Hey guys, what's up? In this video I compare Slack technologies versus Microsoft, specifically Microsoft Teams, which is Slack's biggest competition and one of the main determining factors if Slack will be successful. So let's get into it. Okay, so before I get into the video, if I could ask you guys to smash the thumbs up on it and subscribe if you're an investor. On this channel, the goal is to become better investors together. Okay, so why are we comparing Slack versus Microsoft? It's because Slack's only business is a communication service primarily for large enterprises, and their biggest competitor is Microsoft Teams. Now, of course, we can't really do a direct comparison for Slack and Microsoft because Microsoft has so much more streams of revenue going on. They're a way bigger business. However, in this video, we're going to compare Microsoft Teams versus Slack, and really the biggest determining factor if Slack will be successful is if they can stay competitive. So we're going to see what kind of edge they have on Microsoft Teams, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my opinion whether you should be buying Microsoft stock or Slack. So the way I actually learned about Slack is through my girlfriend. She's a web developer at a university, and they all use Slack at the university. So that's how I heard about them. Then I looked them up. They're publicly traded, and so I dug into the company. And yeah, they're one of the leaders in the communication channel for large businesses, but unfortunately that is their only form of revenue, so they need to stay very competitive in order to be relevant. So that's one of my biggest concerns with Slack, is that only having one source of revenue, you're fully dependent on that part of your business being successful. So let's take a look at Slack and see how they're doing. So Slack's revenue rose 57% to $630 million in 2020, which ended on January 30th. And when they say that, they actually mean 2019. For some reason, they refer to 2020 as actually 2019, and then 2021 as 2020. It's kind of confusing, but just bear with me. Their GAAP net loss widened from 141 million to 571 million. So that's a huge concern just off the bat. On a non-GAAP basis, which excludes stock-based compensation and other one-time expenses, its net loss narrowed slightly from 116 million to 113 million. So that makes more sense. Slack just IPO'd in the last year, and for the first year after a company IPOs, a massive amount of money goes to compensating the employees through stock-based compensation. It's almost like rewarding the employees for building the company, and that's a big reason why companies go public now, is to compensate their employees. So if you are going to invest into an IPO, just be cautious because you're going to be seriously diluted, and the stock-based compensation is just insane. Now, in comparison, Microsoft revenue grew 14% to $143 billion in 2020, which is 2019, and its GAAP net income grew 13% to $44 billion. In other words, Microsoft can easily afford to operate Teams at a loss to push Slack out of the market. So that's a good point in this article, is Microsoft is so massive, and just like a lot of these big tech companies like Apple, Amazon as well, when they're that big and they have that much money at their disposal, they can really kick out the small tech companies. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but it is something to take into consideration that Microsoft is ramping up with Microsoft Teams, and they have the capital to be extremely competitive against Slack. Of course, Slack's only focus is in the communication business, so all of their efforts is go into it. So Slack's revenue stream. Slack operates a freemium business model in which paid users gain access to unlimited messages and unlimited number of integrated tools, better security services, and other perks. So anybody can sign up for Slack for free, but if you want to get more services, you got to pay. And this is similar to Microsoft Teams. So in the first 6 months of 2021, which is actually 2020, Slack's revenue rose 49% year over year to $417 million as the shift to remote work throughout the pandemic boosted demand for its services. Its total number of paid customers grew 30% year over year to 130,000 in the second quarter, with a net dollar retention of 125%, which means their existing customers are paying more money, which is a good sign. Slack is also gaining ground with larger enterprise customers. Its total number of paid customers with over 100,000 annual recurring revenue grew 37% during the quarter, and its number of paid customers generated over 1 million jumped 78%. So Slack's GAAP net loss in the first half of the year narrowed year over year from 393 million to 150 million, and its non-GAAP loss narrowed from 80 million to 16 million. That progress is encouraging, but Slack still expects to remain unprofitable by both measures for the year. So Microsoft splits its business into three core segments: productivity and business processes, which sells productivity software like Office and Dynamics; the intelligent cloud, which includes the cloud platform Azure; and server products; and more personal computing, which sells its Windows licenses, Xbox games and hardware, and service devices. Microsoft has a rapidly growing commercial cloud business, which encompasses its revenue-generated cloud services. Its total commercial cloud revenue rose 36% to over 50 billion, more than a third of its top line in fiscal 2020. Okay, so Slack expects its revenues to rise about 39% in 2020, and for its non-GAAP net loss to narrow. Microsoft hasn't provided any guidance beyond its first quarter, but analysts expect its revenue and earnings to rise 10 to 12% respectively for the full year. So Slack's stock isn't cheap at 16 times this year's sales, and it's unclear if it can hold Microsoft at bay while narrowing its losses. Okay, so I just want to point out it's almost impossible to compare Microsoft as a whole to Slack. Microsoft is just in a different league of its own. However, in this video, I wanted to look at if Slack can remain competitive and grow its business against something like Microsoft Teams. And the honest answer is that time will tell, because Slack needs to continue to innovate and stay one step ahead of Microsoft Teams. However, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit risky to invest in Slack because they only have one source of revenue, and if they lose their competitive edge, then their whole business basically goes down. So I have to give the better buy to Microsoft. It's a safer business, has multiple streams of revenue, it's established, and they have the capital to really compete against Slack, and that makes me a bit nervous. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Am I missing something that Slack has over Microsoft Teams? Because to me, they can just easily keep on updating their service, making it better and better, and it's really kind of a gamble who wins. I recognize the market can have more than one winner. It's big enough for that, but I think if you had to pick one stock to invest in, it would have to be Microsoft.